Hello, friends of YouTube channel. I am Christian Barrientos. I'm an international business lawyer. I'm an anti-corruption and compliance tool. We are with the best journalist investigative international, Martin Arostegui, and we start with this podcast with him. Hi, Martin Arostegui.
Hi, Christian. Can you hear me well now?
Very well, very well.
No echo?
It's record now.
Okay. Hi, Christian. Good to see you again. Good to be here. Yes, I think what we're talking about, we're talking today about the expanding activity of terrorist organizations in certain governments. And of course, we have to understand what we mean by terrorism. I think the term has been highly bastardized recently and almost used in a political, very politicized and used in a very frivolous fashion. Terrorism is more than just a couple of guys throwing a bomb. It's more than a few guys rioting in front of the Capitol. It's more than somebody launching a racial slur at a teacher. Okay, that's not terrorism. Terrorism is organized violence, armed violence, lethal violence by an organized group which acts in the extra-official capacity or outside normal governmental channels. That is terrorism. And what we have now, what we're discussing here, the latest news that have come out, is that Hezbollah seems to be using the COVID pandemic to expand its presence to take control of health ministries in various governments. It's happening in Iraq. It's happening in Lebanon. And it's to the point that American corporations are being accused of dealings with Hezbollah in order to secure local markets for their products. And there's a case which has been opened against Pfizer and several other major pharmaceutical companies in the United States over this. So, what do we have? What do we have here? Well, Hezbollah has for a long time in Lebanon operated a parallel system of government. Aside from running its militia, which it uses to intimidate, interfere in local politics, attack Israel, assist the Assad regime in its civil war against opponents, and also run international terrorist operations for Iran. Hezbollah at the same time has been running an increasingly large welfare system inside, a sort of parallel welfare system inside Lebanon. Not only in the areas that it controls, such as the Bekaa Valley, but also increasingly in parts of Beirut, lower income parts of Beirut, where it is involved in food distribution. It's involved in social organizing, and basically it's welfare functions, which until now were tended to be the area of the state. Of course, this gives Hezbollah tremendous political clout. It expands, it solidifies its social base, as well as derives the source of a major source of funding. And I may add that if this is what it's doing in Lebanon and Iraq, it's also what it's probably doing in Venezuela, where there are two members of Hezbollah who are members of the cabinet. So I think what you have here is a situation. Now, very recently, Hezbollah actually took over the health ministries of both Iraq and Venezuela and Lebanon. The health ministers of both countries are now members of very close collaborators. And as a result, American companies looking to do business, particularly in Iraq, have had say that they've had no option but to deal with with Hezbollah in order to pursue its business activities. And this is the situation we're in right
now. What do you think about the FARC now with the out of the list of the terrorist group? The past connection have a connection with the Hezbollah. Some reports of the intelligence say that. What do you think now about the FARC is out of the list?
Well, I'm not surprised. I mean, I'm not surprised. The former president of Colombia who signed the peace treaty with the FARC, Juan Manuel Santos, I think has been after the U.S. to do this for quite some time. And well, I don't know if the current Colombian government has had any input in this. Do you have any information? I mean, where do you have any information as to where the decision, the pressure to do this came from? My impression that it probably came from Santos, who probably has developed very good relations with the current State Department and has managed to push something through that has been after quite some time. It's understandable. Obviously he doesn't want to be in people that were involved in negotiating the peace treaty with FARC, the partial disarmament of FARC, don't want to be targeted or designated as having dealt with terrorist organization. And the intensity and level of activity of FARC in Colombia has undoubtedly decreased. I mean, they no longer present the ongoing and massive guerrilla threat they presented a few years ago. But in my mind, it may be premature. I mean, FARC is still active. It still maintains bases in Venezuela. It is still highly active in narco trafficking. It's still, while it laid down I think a total of maybe 7,000 rifles. That's the extent of its disarmament in the peace deal with President Santos. Its arsenal, I think, is still much of its arsenal, still the more sophisticated equipment, is still stashed. I don't know if in Colombia or more likely in Venezuela. Possibility it may be hiding surface-to-air missiles, handheld surface-to-air missiles, high-powered sniper rifles, all arms that the U.S. Southern Command says FARC acquired in a major deal with Russian arms dealers, which were never handed over during the disarmament process. So to take FARC off the list because they have behaved or been less violent over the past few years than they were previously, I can understand the move, but I think it's premature.
Interesting. You know about the Lebanese diaspora, Lebanese group of international traffic drug connection with Hezbollah in Europe? You know about that?
The Hezbollah connection with narco traffic.
Yeah, with Lebanese group.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about Europe, but I know that certainly in Venezuela, we all know that a very high-level member of Hezbollah, Tarek al-Aissami, who has held several key cabinet positions in the Venezuelan government, has been openly accused, has been designated by the U.S. Treasury Department as a Hezbollah fundraiser. He's been accused very specifically of channeling money from narco traffic into Hezbollah. into putting it in Hezbollah accounts in Lebanon. Doesn't say, I don't know about Europe, but certainly into Hezbollah accounts in Lebanon. I imagine Hezbollah accounts in Europe is quite expect. We don't know. And Europe is a pretty large area with different jurisdictions. But I imagine it must be pretty closely watched. However,
What's the risk for Latin America now with the Iran present in some Marxist group or political Marxist group, politics president now, how Chile, a new president of Chile, and Iran is the president in Venezuela, but now moved to Chile with this new president. You think so about that? It's good, it's bad? What do you think about that?
I didn't quite understand your question, Christian. You're talking about the.
Okay, I reformulate my question. The Iran presence in Venezuela is moved now to other present in country, how Chile.
Other parts of Latin America.
Yeah.
Well, I think the Iranian involvement with the left in Latin America is generalized. I mean, it has been expressed that. Venezuela is a country where I think they've achieved the highest level of penetration, but they've long been involved with Evo Morales in Bolivia. Maybe it's less so now, but I remember when I was covering Bolivia for the Wall Street Journal, we did a big story on the relations between the Morales government and the Iranians. I mean, Ahmadinejad visited Bolivia several times. There was some question as to whether they were recruiting people. They were recruiting Bolivian computer experts to come and work with the nuclear program in Iran. And the United States knew this. And it's strongly suspected that Bolivia may have provided some uranium, possibly channeled through Venezuela, for Iran's nuclear program. So relations with Bolivia were certainly very, very strong. There has been a long-standing Iranian connection in Argentina with Kirchner. With Kirchner, and basically around the efforts to cover up Iran's involvement in the 1994 attack against Amia and the previous attack against the Israeli embassy, and that Iran interfered so that they would not be. They would not be singled out. They would not be accused. They would not be openly accused of by Argentina, having conducted the attacks. To the point that it's believed that this may have involved the apparent assassination of Alberto Nisman, an independent prosecutor named to investigate the case, which was getting very perilously close to personal involvement by President Kirchner. So, and now in Chile, well, it's to be expected. I think I'm not at all surprised that Boric has the new left-wing government and left of center, I'd say, certainly for the moment. The government in Chile may have some Iranian connection, or could have some degree of assistance, financing, or channel open to Iran. I wouldn't discount it. I don't see anything specific about that. I know that something that's circulated in the press, but it wouldn't surprise
me. The narco traffic and money laundering is the finance of the Hezbollah interesting? You think so?
Again, Christian, could you please repeat the question?
Okay. Is the narco traffic the principal finances and money launderer of the Hezbollah in Latin America?
I wouldn't say I don't know whether it's principle, but I would certainly say that that's where it would, if it comes from anywhere, that's where it would come from, because they're not yet, except for Venezuela, they're not yet politically positioned in any country to derive benefits from public money, although that could change. So I would say that they probably at the moment they would require narco traffic to fund their activities, because they like their international operations to pay for themselves. I mean, they're not going to invest a lot of money in Latin America for some kind of return, or unless they at least pays for itself. And in Latin America, yeah, narco traffic is something that Venezuela has been involved in for a very, very, very long time, for decades. They controlled the Bekaa Valley, which was the major center for the growth of opium and hashish in Lebanon. So it's to be expected that that's probably one of their main financial activities in Latin America. I would add that was the laundering drug money was also one of their major operations, tri-border region between Paraguay, Argentina, and Brazil.
Tri-border area.
Yeah, tri-border area, and that has been going on for very long.
And now with Peru, why is the interest in Hezbollah with Peru? Some connection with narco traffic too, and money laundering too?
Well, has any Hezbollah business been detected in Peru? I mean, it's very likely that there is. I have personally not seen it. Do you have any information to that effect?
I think is the chance with the political change now in Peru have a new president.
Well, I would expect it. I would expect it to be likely, because I think where the left goes, Hezbollah goes in Latin America. In fact, even in Spain, the Podemos party, the far left Podemos party, which was in the government recently, had some and were very involved with Venezuela. In fact, I think they've had to leave the government basically, or the leader was forced to resign his cabinet position because of his close relationships with financial dealings with Venezuela. There was some Iranian involvement there too. Wherever there's Venezuela, wherever there's the far left, there is likely to be Hezbollah. We can be sure of that.
Is for Sao Paulo is the connection all Marxist group, political Marxist group, really?
Well, I mean, frankly, Christian, I have never been a big follower, or I've never used the Forum of Sao Paulo as the boogeyman. I think maybe more power is attributed. It's an association of like-minded people who seem to share common objectives. To what extent it has any kind of operational control over what happens is questionable. Neither do I like to hold up what are maybe associations of interested parties as necessarily some sort of conspiratorial command center. I think a lot of things get misunderstood if you see put events in that light. But undoubtedly, I mean, the Forum of Sao Paulo has been a key venue to promote these kind of relations. And we'll see what happens in Brazil now if Lula gets elected. He was, I don't know what Hezbollah, but certainly he was looking at improving relations with Iran at the time that he lost the presidency.
Hezbollah is an Iran creation, and Hezbollah is a charter with article police in 1985. That's interesting. That's history. Islamic Republic of Iran create the Hezbollah. Why? Why create the Hezbollah group? It's a paramilitary. It's a police group. Why is it? What do you think about that?
It started out as a terrorist organization. Christian, could you stop the recording in a moment? I'm going to get some water.
Okay.
Yes.
Hezbollah is Iran creation, and Hezbollah 1998, role of the jurisprudence and government Iran, the Islamic Republic. Okay.
Hezbollah started as a terrorist group. The first time it came into my radar was when I was working as a terrorism analyst with Risks International in Washington. And yes, I mean, there were a spate of very, very destructive bombings in Lebanon, particularly, as they started out. It was called the Party of God. And I think they blew up the American embassy. They blew up the French embassy. And I think when they really reached, celebrity status, not to put it in the way, was when they blew up, of course, the Marine barracks in Lebanon at the time of the multinational intervention there, and killed 250 Marines with a truck bomb. And it was unclear at the time whether this was again, we have to understand what we mean by terrorism. It was unclear at the time if this was a local terrorist group. Some analysts, even within the US government, tried to attribute it to a family-run organization. But over the years, it's become clear that Iran has taken over Hezbollah. And frankly, I believe that it was Iran that started it. Hezbollah wasn't there before the Iranian Revolution. Lebanon had an ongoing civil war over a decade before Hezbollah hit the scene, and it hit the scene after the radical Islamic Revolution in Iran. So I think Hezbollah was very much an Iranian creation, and I think Hezbollah is very much operated by, and in many cases by Iran, and closely advised by Iran. And in many areas, this is the Quds Force, the elite special operations unit of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, are managed Hezbollah operation and training and supply weapons.
Oh, that's very interesting. Really, very interesting. You know, the nuclear program of Iran and Hezbollah's connection with the America Latina is some interest in Bolivia for drug traffic and uranium, and now the natural resource, uranium, you know?
Uranium.
Uranium,
Well, I know that at the time of when I wrote a piece on this subject for the Wall Street Journal, it was very difficult to prove, of course, but I got information from various sources in Bolivia, including people who were in the mining sector, people who were close to government connected, and someone who had actually been approached about working for the Iranians, that Iran was trying to get uranium from Bolivia, and that they got an amount that I'm not too certain of, but was sufficient perhaps at the time to considerably boost its nuclear research, nuclear capability, to give a boost to its nuclear program, to reach a critical mass so that they could produce an atom bomb, which a lot of experts believe they're now very close to achieving. That's what I know. They also they're also raiding the province of Venezuela, which we assume that they would also have access to. If they were getting anything from Bolivia, or even just trying to get anything out of it. And there's also these flights that were initiated at about that time between their occasional flights. They're not regular. They at first they were believed to be regular because there were several happened in one. There were several of them during one particular phase of time, and then they stopped and they were started out again a year later. An airline was created for the purpose. A Venezuelan airline was created for the purpose of managing a Caracas, Damascus, Tehran air route, airlink. Something which would have which there would normally be no commercial use for, right? I mean, I don't think there's much tourism between Venezuela, Syria, and Iran, nor are there any other substantial commercial interests between three countries that would justify an air corridor. But it was established, according to intelligence reports, most of the flights were empty. Although cargo was managed, cargo went in and out of the planes, which was never inspected, and seemed to have absolutely no kind of control of it, except by very high-level officers of the Iranian and the Venezuelan intelligence. Yep. They suspected that this was the route used to transport possibly uranium to
for nuclear program. Yeah,
right.
It's very dangerous. Really, it's very dangerous for the region and the war. The Hezbollah have a natural source, how uranium in Bolivia and other countries, how Venezuela too. That's incredible. Hezbollah and Iran, interesting. What do you think about the new scenario for 2022 now, for conclusion of this podcast?
Well, I think the main problem now is, Christian, is that terrorist organizations view, and of course rival governments view the United States as very weak. And it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to do something now. In fact, they may, what they'll probably do, I would imagine, over the next year, would be to gain their forces, gather their forces, expand, consolidate the control they have. Like, for example, they're doing, increasingly taking over the key ministries in Lebanon, Iraq, and Venezuela. And possibly get ready for an attack for some major operation of an offensive sort, maybe further down the road. But the situation is very, very dangerous. Again, because of the weakness perceived on the part of the U.S. by its disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan and its cancellation of the border with Mexico, totally lax and non-existent border control, lifting of border control. And the general indecision and the lack of any cohesive response to the terrorist threats on the part of the Biden government. They seem so. It's an increasingly dangerous situation. As to whether it means anything, there's actually going to be an assault, terrorist assault, in 9/11 type thing. I mean, that's anybody's guess. But they're increasingly well positioned. I think they're getting positioned to be able to conduct something like this. And what worries me is that if they do it next time, I think they're going to try to set up the follow-on capability. In other words, not one, but one attack followed up by others. And if they can develop that kind of capability in the U.S. to attack the U.S. or allies, we could be in for a lot of trouble.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Martin Arostegui. Thank you so much, guys. This is the end of the podcast. For the next Saturday, thank you. Martin
Thank
Arostegui.
you. Good. Bye. Take care.
Bye. See you next Saturday with podcast with Martin Arostegui. Thank you so much. Okay, stop.
¿Cómo estuvo, Chris?